tweeting?
No one.
All right. Good morning, Gator Nation. What's going on? This is the Gators Online Show. I am Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. That is senior reporter Zach Albaverdi, also of Gators Online, part of the On3 network. We've got a great show. This is our spring football preview. It's finally here. It was actually a pretty quick offseason. There was a lot going on. Usually, just to explain to everybody, if your staff doesn't get fired that you cover as a reporter, you used to have a pretty light offseason. You could kind of, bowl game and then some relaxation. But now it's this offseason, it was a coaching change along with 100 staff changes. No bowl game. But then the transfer portal, a busy January with the portal and recruiting. And then February, Zach's got to cover multiple sports at once, and I'm out covering football games. By the way, we're not complaining. Our jobs are not hard. We're not saying that. We love them. But it's busy. But everybody is anticipating this spring football practice. I tell you, Zach, it's interesting because the lull of last season, you kind of get into this, man, I don't even care anymore. Well, spring football, it's a spring filled with optimism. You've got a new coaching staff. You've got new players at multiple positions. You got a QB battle. You got all these other great position battles. So there's all this intrigue. So, Zach, I mean, I'm literally, for once, fired up about spring practice. What about you?
Well, if you remember last year, right away, first day of camp, we found out that DJ Lagway wasn't going to be playing. So that just took the air out of the balloon. Yeah. And spring just didn't have the same energy and I think interest in it, not only from fans, but from media too. I mean, we got knee deep in that basketball run and probably going to be in another one, which we'll talk about towards the end of the show. But like you mentioned, Keith, it's a new staff. It's a new regime. It's a new team. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of intrigue with this team, a lot of position battles that we're going to get into on today's show. But I think that, people are looking forward to what these guys are going to do on the practice field. They are going to have some open practices at some point. I think to the fans, we'll get one in the media as well before the spring game on April 11th. So, but it's here, man. On Tuesday, these guys are on the grass. And fortunately, Keith, they get to be on the grass Tuesday and didn't have to reset their schedule because they beat the Gauntlet, right?
Yeah, tell me about the Gauntlet. I've been reading about it, and I know a lot of the people watching were reading about it too. But just explain the dynamics in play, because if Florida didn't win the Gauntlet, theoretically, they wouldn't have been able to have a spring practice, right? So, I mean, they got it done just in time. But explain to, for those that are new to the program and new to following it, and not everybody reads everything during the offseason, just kind of in detail, tell us what the Gauntlet is all about, Zach, and what it means.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was fortunate to be joined by Phil Troutwine on my radio show last week, and we asked him about it because he brought it up and said that the guys had finished the mark that they needed to hit by 12 seconds this past week, and that they had Wednesday and Friday, today that we're recording, to beat it. Otherwise, they weren't going to be able to start spring practice on time, or maybe they would have done it on Monday. I'm not sure. But basically, as Troutwine explained it, it's 6 stations, and there's 6 groups, and you rotate. And it's 2.5 minutes at each station, the first round. Then they get a 4-minute break. Then the next round, it's 1 minute and 45 seconds that they need to go through each station, a 4-minute break. And then they have to be perfect at each station, and they got to complete it in 90 seconds, and they got to finish the whole gauntlet in an hour. And at these different stations, you're pushing sleds, you're going through drills. They got all kind of stuff that these guys are doing that is just an all-out endurance training regimen, to put these guys, push these guys to the brink. And what's important to note is any mistake that they get made, it takes away seconds off the total time. So that's the reason why I think they've done it. They had done it 6 or 7 times before they were able to beat it, because, obviously they've got the talent and athletic ability to be able to complete some of these workouts, but they've got to do it perfectly, the way that they line up. I mean, it's all things rooted in football, right? And things that you got to do over the course of the game to stay disciplined, to not jump off sides, to execute your assignments. So these are all things that are kind of ingrained in the Gauntlet, and this is a regimen that came over from Army West Point that Rusty Witt saw during his time there as a strength coach, and then he brought it over to Troy and Tulane. He and Summerall kind of put their own spin on it a little bit, made it harder actually, is what Witt said. And now they've got the Gators Gauntlet that they were able to beat on Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. Well, I guess 7 is when.
Sorry, Zach. You mentioned all these elements of the gauntlet. You're trying to make your team bigger, stronger, faster, tougher, better endurance, emotionally stronger. But I think the main thing here, and based on interviews that I've seen, you interviewed everybody on the staff. The main thing to me that I get out of the gauntlet is, okay, you're going to do a lot of those things during off-season training anyway. But what you're building here is a team togetherness and a camaraderie that the hope is that it translates onto Saturdays. They had to cross at the finish line together, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, hey, I think they used to have the old 12-minute mile or the 10-minute mile when Spurrier was coach. That was like, everybody kind of doing their own individual thing. And I guess maybe at the end, everybody had to pass. So you did have to cross the finish line together, so to speak, but you really have to here as well. And as they finish it together, they're getting, they got a lot of new teammates. They're pulling for one of another. They're pulling everybody in the same direction. They're getting aligned. And if you get aligned off the field, now look, it sounds kind of hokey and BS-y to a lot of people. And I totally get that. But Zach and I live in this football world, and coaches and the support staff and the strength staff swear by this stuff, that camaraderie and team building is so ultra important, right? It's so ultra important because the coaches can't always be with these guys. So their teammates have to carry them to the finish line sometimes. Their teammates have to help them get better. And we saw this in an interview with Trent McKnight last week, Zach, where he mentioned Eric Singleton. This is different than the Gauntlet, but he said, look, this guy's a great player at receiver. Now we need him to bring some other guys with him, some of the younger guys with him. And essentially the Gauntlet is everybody crossing together, everybody getting to that next step together. And you can see in that video that you posted or that you shared, Zach, from them winning the Gauntlet or beating the Gauntlet, the relief.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Everybody was pulling for each other. That's what you want. You say, okay, come on. I get it. I get there's elements of this team building stuff that the average person's probably thinking, all right, just go win some football games, dudes. We saw this with the last staff and the staff of all that. I get it, but these guys swear by it. And who am I to argue with their methodology of their last few stops at John Summerall? They're winning and they're doing these things, and he's had Rusty Witt with him. And so I don't know. I mean, we'll see if it pays dividends or not, but looks good so far.
I would imagine it's harder than the phases.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there were some concerns the last few years that maybe the team wasn't as hardened as they wanted, Zach, and maybe this is another element of getting that toughness out of them. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
again, it's worked at the last few stops at John Summerall, and I don't have any reason to believe it wouldn't here. All right, Zach, spring practice preview. There's a lot to preview. I mean, normally you would just have all these high school guys coming in as newcomers, but now you've got 24 transfers coming. I mean, you look at the group of specialists, which barely get any mention, and it's all new faces.
Yeah, brand new.
It's all new guys, right? And across the board, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, edge, inside linebacker, cornerback, safety, star. There's a new guy at just about every position. Maybe linebacker, not as much, but they did bring in a linebacker, and he's probably going to be down the depth chart. But it's there's new guys everywhere. So Zach, let's just your general thoughts going into spring practice. What are your expectations, and what should the fans' expectations of what they're going to see?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of competition to be had, right? There's several position battles that are going to take place that are important position battles as well. Center, left tackle, quarterback. I mean, we can go down the line, and we're going to break some of these down and identify which ones we think are the most important. That being said, there's also a lot that they're bringing back, and there's a lot of key returners that while there's going to be all this competition, there's some guys that you can pencil in that are going to start. So, building their offense around Jaden Ball, building their offense around these receivers, I think those are going to be cornerstones on that side of the ball. Defensively, you've got a great linebacker group that you're working with. I think there's some talented defensive linemen, but there's also a rotation that's going to have to get figured out. And then in the secondary, a lot of talent, but a lot of spots up for grabs as well, both starting roles and backup roles. So I'm fascinated by it all. And then special teams, I mean, I guess we know and we project who the starters are going to be, but they're brand new specialists at the 1 and the 2s. About the only thing that you have the same on special teams is Vernell Brown III. You even got the new special teams coordinator as well. So a lot of newness, but still some familiar faces too, Keith.
Interesting thing about spring practice is it's really good for the young guys. It's good for the new guys. And really, if you look at it this way, almost everybody's new this year, even the returnees, because you have new systems, you have new offense, you got a new defense, you got new terminology. I'll never forget, Zach, the first spring practice for a college I ever went to. I didn't know what to expect. What are they going to, they just going to be teaching them where to line up and all that? Man, they hit the ground running. That's what they've been doing for the last couple of months. All right. The minute these guys get on campus, they're meeting with coaches around the clock pretty much. And the strength, when they're not with the strength staff, they're in meetings, they're talking to other players, they're learning the system, they're learning the verbiage, the terminology of the systems, who lines up where, what you're supposed to do. I mean, they're getting taught, and then you can apply it to the field. But because it is still spring and there's not an incredible sense of urgency, I mean, there's urgency, but there's not an incredible sense of urgency like in August. If a guy gets hurt or even a little dinged up and it's Jaden Ball, let's say, he can sit out. He's fine. He can rest. So there's some elements of that too. We see that every spring where we're anxious to see a guy and then they don't really do much because they're injured. Now, it hurt last year with DJ Lagway because he needed the reps. He was a young quarterback. I think that's the position. That's why they're wearing the jerseys where nobody can touch them. They need to be out there. We saw the importance last year, what happens when a guy isn't out there at the quarterback position. But so you've got all these things. Then you have guys coming back from injury, the Dallas Wilsons, TJ Dices, Fletcher Westphal, John Johnson, Cormani McClain. They had a lot of injuries last year.
Yeah.
So there's all these different elements at play. What, besides the position battles, what are some of the couple things you're kind of most eager to see? And it can be an individual, or it can be just a theme, or
Well, I mean, obviously two things that jump out to me right away is the new coordinators on offense and defense and their new schemes that they're going to be implementing. Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, what Buster Faulkner is bringing from an air raid aspect, he's going to have to identify obviously the strengths of his personnel and how he wants to utilize those guys. But they are going to do some things differently in the passing game. They are going to play with some 4 wide receiver sets. Not often, but they're going to do it. And I just think the philosophy, the approach, the way that they practice, the way that they go through drills, Keith, it's going to be different. And it's going to be a change, and it's going to be a welcome change. And so I'm looking forward to him putting his fingerprints all over the offensive side of the ball, and what it's going to look like as he builds his system with these players. And then defensively, yes, they're going to a multiple 3-4 scheme. It is going to be a lot of what Florida did last year and did in the past. But there is some different structure and the way that they're going to, I think, attack things in the front 7, maybe some ways that they're going to utilize guys. I don't know if they'll play with a nickel as much. So I'm just fascinated to see how that comes together. I mean, this is, at the end of the day, Summerall is a defensive coach. He's going to be working hand in hand with Brad White to get that right. And that's what this spring is for. So there's they've got a good linebacker group so that when they want to play, I mean, they can play Childs, Robinson, and Graham on the field a lot in this scheme. How often they're going to do that, what that looks like, again, with the guys on the edges and their interior linemen, both spots of which are up for grabs. It's going to be fascinating to watch it play out.
So I've got that University of Florida education, Zach. So sometimes I can be a little condescending to people because I'm so intelligent with that degree, but I don't mean to be. So if I explain something and it does come across as a little bit like this guy's a know-it-all, forgive me. But they're not. One thing people need to remember is they're not necessarily preparing for a game right now. This is building blocks. This is finding out what guys can and can't do. Like, John Summerall had a cram session when he got that job before they could figure out, okay, who do we as a program keep? Who do we pay a lot to? Who do we maybe ask for pay cuts? Who do we say, yeah, we really think you might want to move on? So they had to do that, a cram session. Well, that's sort of what spring is. They're going to have to learn what people can do before they can really know what to implement. I mean, Buster Faulkner has ideas of what he likes to do, concepts, but this spring he will learn what Dallas Wilson does best, does worst, and is manageable at. Vernell Brown, Eric Singleton, all his receivers, his running backs, his offensive line. Now, the offensive line you hope would be a lot better in August than it is this time of year. But he's learning, and the staff on offense and defense are learning what guys can do. Then they will tailor their plans for August around that. On defense, there was an interview, Greg Gasparotto, the linebackers coach, Zach, that took place in the last couple of weeks, interview with the media. And he mentioned, look, man, the linebackers, we're going to play them at every position this spring. Everyone, so you can learn what they can and can't do. But also, if two guys go down, this guy will be ready to step in. He will know what that specific role is, what the guys around him do, and all that stuff. And so preparedness is everything because, look, to be honest with you, Florida's had a lot of injuries the last few years, and it has cost Florida dearly. And I'm not saying they weren't prepared, but the point is to be prepared beyond prepared. So building blocks for this time of year to then build upon that and say, okay, what can everybody do? And then what, as a staff, can we truly, truly implement? And Buster Faulkner, for one, he'll have a great idea after the spring what people can and can't do. And also the other thing, Zach, is they don't really – I'll let you get into this. I mean, there's a lot of position battles, which we're going to get into in a couple of minutes here, but a lot of them won't be determined for later. This is correct. I mean, they're not going to – you wouldn't tell a guy he's lost the job in the spring. It might demotivate him for August, right?
No doubt.
So they got to play head games too, but they also probably won't know in a lot of. I mean, look, some guys that go home and take that. Well, they're not really going home anymore like they used to, but some guys can grow during those 3-4 months, and some guys plateau. So things can change in a few months. But
you mentioned the linebackers cross training. Yeah. They're going to do that all over the defense, right? Like on the defensive line, I think that they'll roll multiple guys at nose to see who can give them a good look there because they don't have an obvious 350-pound guy. We've put out our projected starter at that position at Gators Online this week, a pretty interesting projection, might I add. But they're going to use a lot of different guys at the end spot, at defensive tackle, at nose. They're going to cross-train there. As Keith mentioned, they're going to play all the guys at all three linebacker spots. Also, in the secondary, they are going to do a lot of cross-training. Right now, when we got the initial roster and position breakdown from Florida, they only had 3 guys listed at star. Kanye Clark, Elijah Owens, and Purter, the incoming freshman. So they're going to have somebody else that plays that spot, maybe 2 other guys that play that spot, but that's to be determined. They're going to roll all of their safeties, maybe even some corners in, see how they look at nickel. They're going to try guys at both safety spots. They're going to see and get their eyes on what this secondary can do and who's best suited to play where. So that is something that I'm also looking forward to because the Gators lost Sharif Denson and Aaron Gates, their top 2 nickelbacks. And, Gates, at least, I think, was, when healthy, one of the better players on defense. So there is a void there to be filled. I don't think as much so at free safety. I would be very surprised if Cam Dooley does not come in and lock up that spot. Can somebody give Bryce Thornton a run for his money? I'm not expecting it per se, but I think that there's going to be a lot of competition for those safeties to get on the field between DJ Coleman, Lagonza Hayward. You still got Alfonso Allen in that room, who is he's on scholarship now, by the way. He ain't a walk-on anymore. He's a force to be reckoned with, as we've seen. So Kanye Clark is, to me, maybe the early leader in the clubhouse potentially as a starting star. There's been a lot of buzz about him coming out of the offseason, some ridiculous videos of him lifting that Rusty Witt has posted. I mean, that dude is strong for a defensive back. So, but again, cross-training all across the board, Keith, on that defensive side of the ball.
I know people were thinking, well, how do they not already know what these guys can do? They recruited a lot of these guys as transfers, but sometimes you get a guy in front of you and he just isn't what you thought he was, and for better or for worse. And one of those guys, I think I read a quote, Zach, from John Summerall, was about Kanye Clark, the defensive back transfer from UCLA, and I think they were pleasantly surprised with his twitchiness and his movement and all that stuff. Well, those are things that maybe you can't. I mean, they'd never been one-on-one with them. They'd only seen video. They'd only, you do your homework, you do your diligence, you talk to maybe people that have coached him or coached against him to try to learn what he can and can't do. But then you get a guy in individual off-season workants, and all of a sudden you're thinking, man, this guy can do things we didn't think he could do. And sometimes it works in the reverse too. You see a guy's film and maybe it turns out the speed isn't quite what you thought it was. And so, again, it works both ways. But they're going to be learning every day. They're going to be learning more and more about these guys. For a while, it's been learning about them in off-season workouts. Now it's how can these guys, who applies that the best to the field? And, okay, so you think Kanye Clark's a lot twitchier and faster than we thought, let's say? Okay, but how does that translate to the field? Maybe his play speed's not up to par with that. Or maybe it's better. You don't know. So they're going to be learning a lot. And obviously they don't have the Army, so to speak, maybe that they used to have, but they still have a pretty good sized group of staff. And they're going to be watching every position extremely close, every player extremely close, just trying to learn whatever you can. Zach, you want to do some position battles?
Let's do it. Obviously, a lot of intrigue there. We'll save quarterback for last. How about that?
All right. Well, you want to do defense first?
Let's do defense first. Yeah.
All right. So up front on defense, Brad White, new defensive coordinator, comes from Kentucky, where he had a good bit of success outside of the last couple of years where the whole program sort of just probably needed a reset. But Brad White, noted as being one of the better defensive coordinator minds in the country. I've talked to some guys that are also well-known coaches, one of them being the great Kevin Steele, who was Nick Saban's last DC at Alabama. He said, no, this guy's for real. This guy, and like Buster Faulkner, Zach, he's a guy that takes what he has and does what he can with it. He molds his plan around what he has, not vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
And so, obviously at Kentucky, maybe you have a different kind of athlete than you would have at Florida. So Kevin Steele thought, okay, look, wait till you see what this guy can do when he gets Florida athletes and his guys can play press coverage and all that stuff. But defensive line, so intriguing because, look, Caleb Banks only played, I think, 3 games last year, possible first-round draft pick. So I don't know how to judge that as a loss, Zach, because really Florida got about 4 good games out of him in his whole career. But you lose him. You lose Brian Taylor up front.
And then Mekhi Burrow.
And Mekhi Burrow, obviously a big one. I mean, Burrow and Caleb Banks were supposed to be your anchors on the defensive line.
And then now in that defensive line room is the edge position, which is where they lost Sapp. The end position.
Defensive end, which it's basically your
strong side defensive end.
That's right, which I always hated that they had
hand in the dirt.
We would write these articles and would say edge. We'd have to then define which edge it was, and it was a little confusing. But anyway,
they called it the F spot.
Yeah, the F edge. I mean, so anyway, not to be
that was a fail. They failed on that.
It was a fail only in the sense it just confuses. It makes it harder for people to digest where guys line up. But anyway, so they have some significant losses at those 3 spots. Burrow obviously being a big one, and he was very good when he played, Zach. But again, like Banks, not as much as Banks, but he played in under 300 snaps last year, I think.
Availability issues.
Availability issues. He missed a few games, and he was very good when he was out there. Look, they don't win the Mississippi State game without him. I mean, obviously it ended up being irrelevant. The coach was fired the next day.
That was a hell of a play, though, man.
It was a great play. So significant. So how do you replace a guy that not only won, Zach, plays a unique position, nose tackle. You got to take on 2 guys almost every single play. 2, extremely big. I mean, I think they listed him like 330 something. Give me a break, right? Yeah, easily. Yeah. All right. And then, again, position, size, and skill set. Very athletic big man. So how do you replace a guy like that? And who are we going to see battling for that critical nose tackle position, Zach?
Yeah, obviously that is a spot. If there was one place where I think that they wish they could have added another player from the transfer portal, I think it would be that. I think it would be nose. those guys don't grow on trees, though, man. And the ones that do, that are very good, are very expensive. And if you're going to pay that, again, it's a conversation we have a lot. But if you're the ones that are really good and the ones that cost a lot, if you're going to invest that much in them, well, how good are they actually? And is it worth, spending whatever percentage it is of your NIL budget or your roster budget on just one player at one position? So I don't know that there was somebody out there for Florida that fit that bill, literally. I know that they wanted to keep Mekhi Burrow in Gainesville and match what Ole Miss was offering him, but he ultimately, I think, just wanted to change the scenery. So now Florida has got to figure out what it's going to do at nose. But here's the good thing. As we mentioned, he has had availability issues. He missed practices last year. He missed games last year. Florida has had to go without him in the middle. So last year, the two guys that played nose the most were Brendan Bett and Joseph Mbachu. Jamari Lyons has played it, does play it, can play it, but they started Bett at nose in some games, and they gave Mbachu a lot of run as well. This year, I think both of those guys could play there. I think Lyons is going to be in the mix there. You got Kendall Gervil, who's the incoming freshman. He is a nose tackle. He is without a doubt a mold of a nose that you want in terms of the weight, build, size. However, he's a freshman, number one. Number two, he's coming off of an ACL injury, but he is, on campus and will get to go. I don't know how limited he'll be in spring, Keith, if at all. But, I don't know how much they can count on him as a true freshman.
Yeah.
The guy that I'm projecting and that I'm hearing could be the guy at nose to watch out for is Joseph Mbachu. They think, you wrote the second-year surge story, Keith. They think that guy is due for a second-year surge. He's got a chance to really blossom this year. And, he will be on the smaller side at nose. But, the dude is like 6'7", and he's probably going to be 310, 315 pounds. I don't know what he's going to be listed at. So he's not a small guy by any means. He's going to give you a little bit of a different look. But he's somebody, I think, Keith, to watch for because the staff is very, very high on him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I got a chance to go see Joseph Mbachu play in high school. A fascinating story because he played other sports. He's from, was from another country. And he'd only really picked up football a couple of years ago and did not start. In the fall of 2024, Zach, he wasn't even starting for his high school football team. And now he may be starting in season 2 at the University of Florida on the defensive line. So if you're a Florida fan, you're like, oh, Jesus, that can't be good. No, people knew. They knew. Everybody that we talked to knew.
Texas knew.
They knew. Look, everybody knew that this guy was doing this. A couple of reasons why he wasn't starting. He was new to the sport. He also played at I think, great. Oh, gosh, I hope I'm not getting the score. I think he played at Grayson, the well-known program in Gwinnett County of Atlanta. And so, they had dudes on their team. They had just a dozen Division I guys, and they were not going to put a guy out there that quite frankly, to start that hadn't earned it yet. He hadn't been with the program for as long. So they saw the upside. In fact, at one of his games, Zach, I was out there with an SEC assistant coach, and that person said to me, this guy's going to be all SEC in a couple of years. Well, this is a couple of years later, and I don't know. Yeah, he's not as big as Mekhi Burrow from a wideness perspective, so you may lose some of that, right? But he's twitchier than Burrow, and he's quicker than Burrow. And
more athletic than Burrow.
More athletic. And Burrow's pretty damn athletic but for his size. And so, again, you may give a little bit up on the run game, but you may now have a nose, if he's the guy, that it has more penetrating backfield plays. So give up a little, gain a little, right? But Joseph Mbachu, it's just a fascinating story. This guy wasn't even playing high school football like 3-4 years ago.
That's crazy.
And, And Florida and a few other schools discovered him in spring practice. I want to say 2024, and Florida got on him fast. So great story. Hey, Zach.
Here's another spot on the D line, though.
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Well, you're talking about the actual edge position or one of the three?
Yeah, the end. Yeah.
Okay. Well, wait a sec. Which? No, I'm confused. The strong side end.
Yeah, strong side end.
Okay, you got a good one there. So go ahead.
Yeah. So that spot. again, this is where Tyreek Sapp played last year. This is where Cameron James backed him up. Had there been no additions from the portal, I'd say no doubt, without question, Cameron James is going to be the starter. He's a senior. He's played. Sometimes he's played more than Tyreek Sapp. At times he's been more productive than Tyreek Sapp. So, and remember, back in 2024, he opened the year as the starter over him. And then they made the change, I believe, either before or after the Mississippi State game. So James is primed and ready to step into that role. However, he's got some competition now. Emmanuel Oyebadayo, don't know if I'm saying that right still. I got to ask my guy when we talk to him. But he is getting rave reviews. Again, this is just from winter workouts, but like they are really excited about the early returns on this guy and what it seems like he could be for them this year in terms of an immediate impact guy. So I don't know that he's going to necessarily come in and start over Cameron James, but I definitely think that he's going to be in the rotation and be somebody that's playing a lot with the first team defense. He's also got the versatility to play different spots along that defensive line too. So he's not just going to line up at strong side defensive end. But between Cameron James, Emmanuel, and LJ McCray, and then you add Jalen McCoy to that room, as well as Jalen Wiggins, like, man, there's a lot of talent at that spot, Keith.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an uptick in Florida's production at that position. Yeah, Tyreek Sapp did not have what you would call a banner season last year. I'm not saying he's terrible, but he wanted to push for double-digit sacks. I think he ended up with 1.5. I mean, the production just wasn't really there. Cameron James, I think, had 3.5 sacks, which led that position, and he's trending up. I think that was sort of his breakout season. Now he's hoping for a real breakout season.
Well, and then Jalen McCoy was a big-time recruit.
Yeah, big-time recruit. Now, you just never know how much seasoning a guy needs. Like, are they ready to be – it's one thing being a defensive end, Zach, in high school. It's another having to set the edge in the SEC. So
I'm just saying, like, across the board, that room's got so much talent.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And Jalen Wiggins is a guy that, that the previous staff really thought highly of, an extremely hard worker, always kind of felt like he was going to need a little bit of seasoning. But Emmanuel Oyebadayo, so from Jacksonville State, people are like, they were not excited about it. A lot of people, kind of like Cam Dooley, part-time starter at Kentucky. What's the big deal about these guys? Well, because, and we'll talk about Dooley in a minute, because when you're looking for guys in the transfer portal, you're not looking for guys that have already peaked. So a guy may have a great season, but you as a staff may say, hey, he had a hell of a season, but we think maybe that's his peak, right? So you're looking at Emmanuel Oyebadayo, a guy that was playing college basketball just a few years ago in England, okay? You're looking at his ceiling, and you're seeing this. You're seeing a guy that was doing a little bit of this last year and then shot up toward the end of the year. Cam Dooley, same thing. Worked into a more important role as the season went on, and by the end of the season at Kentucky was one of their best players. And the defensive backs coach, and that's a different position, but the DB coach is at Florida, and the DC's at Florida, and that's the guy they picked to come with them. That's telling, right? So Emmanuel Oyebadayo, a guy that the Florida staff believes is this. The best part about this, Zach, is we know Gerald Chapman likes to play with a rotation anyway. People are always like, why do they take this guy out? What are they doing? Because your best guy you want fresh in the fourth quarter. So you really would prefer the guy after him to be just as good, quite frankly. So you can keep those guys fresh. What you don't want is you don't want any defensive lineman playing 74 snaps in a game. That's a recipe for disaster. So they've got depth. They've got quality at this defensive end position, Zach, and it's strong. And Zach, I wanted to get your take on let me get you back there. The rest of the SEC, the rest of the defense, your key position battles. Linebacker, it's a few guys fighting for 2 starting spots, but they may start 3 in some games.
Yeah.
And then defensive back, you've got, 2 of your better corners back. You lose Dijon Johnson. Star's an interesting one.
You lose Devin Moore.
What did I call him?
Dijon Johnson.
Oh, Dijon Johnson's
back.
Dijon's back. Yeah, thanks, Zach. And so on the rest of the defense, were the top position battles?
Yeah, we mentioned it. Certainly Star figuring that out and who's going to emerge there. Not just necessarily the starter, but also like which guy gets designated to play nickel primarily versus strong safety. Again, and is there somebody that can give Bryce Thornton a run for his money? Does the staff feel like Bryce Thornton is best served at nickel? Like, I don't know. I mean, he's played nickel. So I think just based on, the way I see it going, I think it's going to be Dooley and Thornton at the two safety spots. But I'm not sure about Starr. I mean, I'm only going off of projecting Clark there based off of some of the really good things that we've heard about him coming out of workouts, and the fact that, it's wide open for somebody to grab that job. And he at least seems like he's going to have the opportunity, but they're going to play Laganza Hayward at Starr. They're going to play DJ Coleman there. They're going to try Thornton there. They're going to roll a lot of guys there. And, maybe one of the corner, maybe Javari Flowers or somebody like that emerges as a guy that they want to get on the field so bad that they're going to play there. So there's a lot of competition, I think, to be had at that nickel spot.
I think Javari Flowers would be a hell of a nickel.
You like that? You like that suggestion?
Yes, because he's a little on the smaller side, right? And he covers so much ground, and he's so tough, and he's physical, and he's just got this incredible awareness about him. I love that suggestion. Look, I think having this versatility at these positions in the secondary is great, because sometimes a guy may be a starter, designated as a starter, but maybe the matchup dictates that, hey, maybe the other guy needs to play more this game, right? Maybe the other guy's a better matchup because that team runs to the strong side more or whatever, right? Or big receiver here, big receiver that, all that stuff. So whatever the other team is doing can dictate what you're going to do. And if you have versatility and quality depth, not just depth, but quality depth. And so when you're looking at the star position, excuse me, Zach, you're looking at guys with different skill sets. Kanye Clark and DJ Coleman are different size guys. They have different
100%. Yeah, it's even a totally different look.
Yeah. So, all right. Cornerback, we feel.
Yeah. I think they're playing Cormani McClain and Dijon Johnson one series, and Javari Flowers and Ben Hanks the third the other. And I think they're rolling those guys. Now, maybe you'll get different combinations. Maybe one of those guys will play star in some situations. But, I think that for Florida to be what it needs to be on defense, they need Dijon Johnson and Cormani McClain to fulfill their potential. And they need Ben Hanks and Javari Flowers to take that next step and be able to give those guys, 4 really good cornerbacks. I mean, they've got the talent to do it with those 4 right there. And then there's a lot of other guys that are going to be vying for playing time too, but I think that's a good nucleus right there that they're working with.
Okay. We talked a little bit about safety. You ready to move on to offense?
Yeah, we can do offense.
Okay. All right. So offense, we're going to do QB last, everybody. So let's start at tight end. How about that? We don't really know what's going on at that position, right? I mean, they got big retention. Well, you probably do more than I do, but Amir Jackson, big retention, more of a pass catching tight end. This could be one of those situations where he signed with a school that use guys more in 12 personnel. And by the grace of God for him, they bring in a guy that wants to throw the ball and sort of run an offense almost through a tight end like a lot of the NFL OCs do. And then you also brought in 3 transfers. You've got some younger players. Micah Jones was redshirted last year. Hezzy Kent just signed with Florida. But, man, that seems like something that's pretty wide open at going into the spring, Zach.
It is, yeah. I put out the projections. I feel good about one of those guys definitely being a starter, and that's Lakota Dupree, the redshirt junior from James Madison. I just feel like he's a guy that should kind of settle into that Y tight end spot, where Hayden Hansen played, be more of your inline tight end. But he's going to get some competition from Evan Chica. I don't know if they're going to use Amir or Luke Harpring there. To me, they both seem like more of the pass-catching tight ends. I projected Amir Jackson as a starter. I think that this is his time to really emerge and become a player for the Gators. But I got to say, I think Luke Harpring is going to give him a run for his money, or at least give him some competition. Like, he is a guy that's played in Buster Faulkner's offense. He's been productive with the opportunities that he's had. and he's going to get every opportunity to either earn the starting role there or have a role in the offense. So I think that there's probably more competition at that spot between those two than whatever Dupree is going to see at the Y. So that's kind of what I see, tight end looking right now.
Okay. Receiver position, I think if everybody's healthy, it would seem like the starters would be Vernell Brown III, Dallas Wilson, and the transfer Eric Singleton. You want to throw anybody else out there? What if they go 4 wide, Zach? Who would be your 4th guy?
That's a great question, Keith. That's a great question. Man.
I guess it would depend on who you're playing and what.
It depend on who you're playing, depend on the look, but woo boy, I might have to. It might be Bailey Stockton, man. There's a lot of buzz about that guy. I think that he's going to be in the rotation for sure. I think obviously you're bringing TJ Abrams back. He's another guy that's played, and I think will be in the rotation. Khalil Jackson is returned for another year, and he is going to be a factor. I think if he's healthy, which it seems, and from everything we hear that he is, he's going to be another option that you have at receiver. The guy to me to watch out for though is Davion Gross. Like I don't know how you're going to keep him off the field. I do think coming in he's going to be behind some of the other guys that I just mentioned that have the experience. But Davion Gross at that X position, he's going to be a factor. And obviously Dallas Wilson is going to own that spot. But I think that, when you go 4 wide or if Dallas needs a breather, I think that there's going to be a chance that Gross gets on the field as a freshman. But for that 4th guy, man, I think it might be somebody like Bailey Stockton or TJ Abrams.
Okay.
But I'm excited to see. Again, to your point, Keith, not a lot of questions about the starters, but a lot of competition for the backup roles behind them.
You mentioned Gross earlier. So, you watch his film and you see what he did in high school. Just phenomenal, like 1,600 receiving yards last year.
Stud.
Big play after big play in big games against big competition in Texas. What we don't know, the unknown is like with the true freshman receivers. Is this guy going to want to block? Look, even if they're running 3-4 wideouts, these guys are going to have to block, right? That's part of the game. And that's an unknown with Davion Gross. And you know who it wasn't an unknown with? It was never an unknown with Dallas Wilson because he was blocking the hell out of dudes in high school and knocking them on their asses, Zach, because I was there. I saw it. And so that's kind of the one unknown there. And then obviously, is he going to be polished enough as a route runner? And that's what the spring's for. And that's what August camp will be for. But I think, again, there's a lot of quality at the top in the receiver room, and there's a lot of depth. There's just a little bit of unknown depth. And with that 4th receiver, I love TJ Abrams, and I think he really came on late last season, but Bailey Stockton's dependable, knows the offense, and has the trust already of his OC. With the new staff, players that haven't played for these guys before have to earn trust. Well, Bailey Stockton already has the trust of his OC because he just spent the last few years with them. And I think that's significant too. But again, obviously it'll depend on the situations and the matchups and all that stuff. And they've got some good ones. Micah Mays coming from Wake Forest, who played for Eric Kresser back at Benjamin School in Palm Beach Gardens. So there's a lot in that receiver room. Jalen Lloyd, I hope I'm getting the name right. The kid from Oklahoma State didn't do much there, but at his previous stop, Nebraska, really flashed that track speed. He's
put him on a go route.
Yeah, sub 10-5 guys. So there's a lot with which to work. You got 2 receivers coaches. We used to make fun of Florida for having 2 O-line coaches. Hopefully we're not going to be making fun of Florida for having 2 receiver coaches. Zach, a lot to work with there. All right, running back. The battle isn't for number 1. That's Jaden Baugh. The battle's for number 2 and number 3. And so in the Georgia Tech offense last year, the primary ball carriers were the running back, the starting running back, whose name escapes me, and the quarterback. Well, we know that Aaron Philo and Tramel Jones, whoever wins the QB job, which we'll get to in a second, they're not going to run 14 times a game like Haynes King did. You call him Hayes King, I call him Hayden. We all get his name. Haynes King. That kid could run 20, 25 times a game if needed. That's not going to happen anymore. So it's going to be Jaden Baugh and then a couple guys behind him. And Zach, you got Duke Clark back. showed a lot of promise last year. Fast guy, can be physical when he needs to, can catch the ball out of the backfield. Evan Pryor, a guy that if you give him a crease, the transfer from Cincinnati, you give him a crease, he's gone. You got London Montgomery from East Carolina, serviceable back, put up pretty good stats the last couple of years. Byron Lewis, returning from his true freshman season. He was wasn't a late addition. He was a late arrival. He didn't enroll till last summer, so he was behind a little bit, but he's got ability. It's going to be a pretty good little battle there at running back, Zach.
It is. It is. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see what the new backs look like, and kind of what that competition and that pecking order, how that plays out. I do think Evan Pryor is and probably should be the favorite for the number 2 role just based on his experience. I mean, the guy's a redshirt senior, was at Ohio State, was at Cincinnati, has played, has been productive, and he gives you a nice change of pace from what Jaden Baugh is. Like, he gives you a different look. So I think he's got probably a leg up there, but I mean, London Montgomery is another explosive and experienced running back that you're adding to that room. He's going to have something to say about those carries. And then Duke Clark, I mean, you absolutely cannot sleep on him. Not only as a number 3, I think number 2, he's going to be vying for some of those carries behind Baugh. I mean, he did it last year and passed up several guys on the depth chart. So when healthy, Duke Clark is going to be a factor. I mean, and you mentioned Byron Lewis, man. For him, he's the closest thing that Florida has to Jaden Baugh in terms of skill set. So I certainly think that, short yardage situations, he's a guy that can get on the field. But really, to me, I think he'll play and try to, crack the rotation this year. I think for him and his future, once Baugh is gone, which will likely be after this season, he's going to have an opportunity to really fill and do a lot of the things that I think that he provides. So right now, I think the key for that second guy that they put in there, obviously you want the best player on the field, but it's also to, I think, give a different look and a different type of running back. So that's what they're looking for. That's what they're working with. They got a lot of guys vying for that spot, and it's a talented room.
I think most of those guys can catch the ball out of the backfield too. So they add a little versatility there. So you don't necessarily, you take one guy out, you put another guy in, Zach, and the other team isn't going to automatically know what that guy's out there for. Right.
Yeah.
And I think in what we've seen in the running back room and to the credit of Jabbar Jalouk and the previous staff, I think that competition lifted everybody in that room. And I think the hope is that it continues to do the same because there's some real talent there. I mean, if London Montgomery is your number 4 back, let's say, and Byron Lewis is your number 5 back, then you're probably in a pretty good position. And we also know that injuries do take their tolls. I mean, Duke Clark was like number 4 or number 5 going into this when he arrived at Florida last year. And then he got a lot of action in that spring game, which isn't always telling, Zach, but it certainly was telling there because when Jacoby Jackson got hurt, and who's going to be the next
number 2?
He was the next guy. He had passed KD Daniels. And so I wouldn't have predicted that because we'd heard KD Daniels had. Now you might have, but I wouldn't have. And we'd heard KD Daniels was having a great spring. So hopefully that lifts everybody, the talent and the competition, all that. All right, Zach, we've done receiver, running back, tight end. Now we got to go to
the 2 most important positions.
Yeah, exactly. See, we got to have a little hook to keep people around. Offensive line, man. I mean, you're losing your All-America center, Jake Slaughter. You're losing your 3rd-team All-SEC tackle, Austin Barber, who, by the way, didn't get a lot of praise from people like me during the season. End of the season, he's 3rd-team All-SEC. And you're also losing your starting right guard, Damian George. The returning starters, Najee Harris, left guard, and Caden Jones started, the last 10 games, I want to say, Zach, at right tackle. Of course, when you're a returning starter, even with the staff that you were the starter for, you're not guaranteed much. And you're damn sure not guaranteed much, if anything, when you have a new staff. So there's a chance. Najee Harris is going to be hard to beat out, but there's going to be a lot of new faces playing and starting this next year, Zach. Among these positions, which ones are you watching closely on the offensive line?
Man, obviously you got to start at center and left tackle. Left tackle, I think, is more of an unknown in terms of the guys that are going to be in the mix for that job. I think one that I'm almost certain and positive will be is Ethan Bauer from Penn State.
Boyer,
excuse me. I think that he's certainly a guy that's going to be repped and looked at for that left tackle role. But they're going to try several guys, including guys that have played right tackle in the past. They're going to give everybody a look at left tackle. So it's a little bit more of an unknown in terms of, like, could somebody else emerge at that spot? And whereas in center, it's pretty obvious who it's down to. It's Harrison Moore, it's Jason Zandamela. And, Jason Zandamela is probably the, freakier athlete, obviously the higher rated player coming out of high school and coming out of the portal. I mean, he's one of Florida's highest ranked transfers in the portal era, Jason Zandamela. So, but it's not going to be easy for him to beat out Harrison Moore. This guy has started and played at center in Buster Faulkner's offense at Georgia Tech. So he's got some built-in advantages, and he's a little bit older as well. So he's, had a chance to develop longer in college. So, but Jason Zandamela is a dude, man. And I know he's been impressing in the weight room too. So that's going to be, honestly, Keith, along the offensive line, that might be the most competitive battle is at center between Zandamela and Moore. There could be others, but I think that one is going to be, and then that being said, though, they probably will know, they won't name it, but they probably will know in spring who they like there, who they feel comfortable running the offense and having the responsibilities that come with playing center. So that's something you got to identify pretty early on. But both of those guys are going to be vying for that role.
All right, so let's take a quick look at the 4 transfers who came in. Egan, by the way, I was glad you got Boyer's name wrong, only because I butcher 20 names a show. I need you to at least butcher one. You need to at least butcher one a show. That's got to be our promise, Zach, so I don't look like too big of an idiot here. All right, so Egan Boyer at Penn State. He played 2 seasons with the Nittany Lions for current offensive line coach Phil Trautwein. Now, he only started 1 game, played a lot of games, only started 1 game, and it was his final game with Penn State, a bowl win over Clemson. But going into his 3rd year, he was likely going to be a starting tackle and left tackle at Penn State in 2026 had he stayed with the Nittany Lions. So a guy that Phil Trautwein thought was doing this. And that was one of the bigger gets this offseason in the portal. Zach, he wasn't highly rated in the portal, but they knew, Florida knew that was the guy they targeted. That was the guy they locked in on early. That was the guy Phil Trautwein wanted. That was the guy Buster Faulkner wanted. I remember talking to Jaden Ball's dad one day, Zach, and he said, yeah, that's a guy I'm tracking. They knew, everybody knew what this guy, the thought of what he could be is. And so that was significant. At center, Harrison Moore, who you mentioned in this battle with Jason Zandamela, he started 9 games last year for Georgia Tech. Now, interesting thing about him, he played tight end through most of his high school career, transitioned to offensive line, I want to say his last year, got to Georgia Tech. I don't think he weighed, Zach, but maybe 260 pounds in that range. Played multiple positions in his first year, and by year 2 was one of the top emerging centers in the ACC. Now, he's still young. He's a very young player. So even though he's got all those starts under his belt and he was very successful, especially in that Georgia Tech run game, he's still a young guy with a high ceiling. So Zandamela is certainly going to be pushed there. At guard, TJ Shanahan, another player that Florida really locked in on from the portal, at Penn State, started, I want to say 4 or 5 games last year. Prior to that, started 4 or 5 games at Texas A&M. So he has started in big games, in big conference games before. So at the very least, he's going to, if he's not starting, he's going to be right there, and he's certainly going to play. And then at the other tackle position, Zach, I think you mentioned him, Emeka Agorji from Stanford, as a true freshman, played 10 games last year. Now, his Pro Football Focus grades weren't anything to brag about, but he was a young guy getting thrown to the wolves, playing 10 games, starting 8 as a true freshman on the offensive line. A lot of offensive lines, Zach, as we see at Florida, aren't even playing until year 3. He was having to start as a true freshman. So he's going to be battle tested. He can come in and give you some. Here's my feeling: if a guy like Harrison Moore is not starting, then that tells you that Jason Zandamela went out and grabbed it. I mean, that's a good thing. Then you're developing depth on the offensive line, depth which we always heard Florida had the last few years, but maybe really didn't show it on Saturdays. And so maybe that was a miscalculation from the staff. But then, Zach, I wanted to ask you about some of these guys that didn't do much last year that are on your depth chart as possible second and third teamers who, by the way, can end up playing the second guys get hurt. Fletcher Westfall, an offensive tackle, has been injured the last couple of years. Jahari Medlock, a true freshman tackle last year. TJ Dice, a true freshman tackle last year. So what's the general vibe? I mean, you've been beating down the doors, talking to your sources. What do they feel inside the program about this offensive line? Are they optimistic? Are they cautious? Or do they not know what they have? What would you say the mindset is going into spring?
No, I mean, I think that they feel like from the group that they have and the pieces that they're working with, that they should be able to field a competent and talented starting five. I just think that they got to figure out and identify who those best five are. You know, Rod Kearney is a guy that has impressed so far in the offseason, according to the people that we've heard from. I think that this is his time, obviously, to take a starting job at right guard. I believe TJ Shanahan is probably going to give him a run for his money because I think we both expect Najee Harris will lock down that left guard spot. So that's going to be intriguing to watch as well. But, I mean, we've mentioned it. We've talked about it. It's really going to come down to those offensive tackle spots, really both of them, because even though you get Caden Jones back, he is coming off surgery, off-season surgery, and, I don't think that he played well enough last year to, guarantee that he's going to keep that job. So you mentioned the Stanford transfer, TJ Dice, Jahari Medlock, Fletcher Westfall. I think probably, a guy that maybe might surprise some folks, I guess, Keith, or maybe a sleeper is Jahari Medlock. Like I think I've heard a lot of good things about him, just not even just from his time with the new staff, but just over the course of his time at UF. Obviously, TJ Dice and Fletcher Westfall were more highly rated, I believe. But I think Jahari Medlock has got a chance to really carve out a role for himself this year as a solid, backup at one of those tackle spots. So we'll see how it plays out, but there's a lot of options. I mean, how do you say the Tyler guy's last name? Chikuyum?
Chikuyum, yeah.
Chikuyum. So now we got two. And now you corrected me, Keith, so you got the one up on me for this show. Yeah. So there you go. But, I mean, who knows, man? Like, I mean, the guys love him, Corey and Blake. They think that he could be one of the, the best signees in this class.
If you mentioned this guy and I missed it, forgive me. But last season, all the preseason hype on the offensive line, not all of it. I mean, obviously Barber and Slaughter were getting a lot, but Bryce Lovett. And then he went out and struggled the first two games and lost his starting job. But Zach, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he end up playing halfway decent as the season went along and maybe a little bit better and better? And is he still in the mix for one of these jobs or what? What's
so I've got him projected as a guard. I would imagine that they're going to look at him at both spots, interior and tackle. But, I mean, I personally think that he played or looked better as a guard. But I agree with you. He did, over the course of the season, seem to play better at tackle as the year went on because they continued to give him opportunities, even though he struggled to start the season because he opened the year as a starter and lost that spot to Caden Jones. So I think that he's certainly a guy, too, that you can't count out because he has played, he has flashed at times and been productive, and he was, a freshman all-SEC honoree because of how well he played at guard in 2024. So can't count him out either. And that's, that's another, again, I think 18 scholarship guys, man. They're going to be able to put together, I think, a good top 8-9.
All right, we are at the final position. Well,
Let's just move on. That's
we
they
don't think,
know.
and by the way, we don't need to go over the specialists. Patrick Durkin, your all conference kicker from Tulane. He's probably going to be your place kicker. Alec Clark, your all conference punter from Tulane, is probably going to be your punter.
And then the Louisiana long snapper, he will start as a senior.
So, Zach, quarterback, right? You got two guys, two young guys still. I mean, Aaron Philo coming from Georgia Tech. This is just his third year college ball, redshirt sophomore. He's got one career start. Then you got Tramel Jones, played 2 games last year as a true freshman, is DJ Lagway's top backup. He's got 0 career starts. After him, you've got Aiden Warner. You've got
Will Griffin,
true freshman, player of the year in the state of Florida. But, obviously that's a tall task to come in and start as a true freshman. Usually that happens when a guy is just the next whatever, Dan Marino, or your team sucks. And we don't think Florida's going to suck. We hope. So we think it's probably going to be one of these two guys, Aaron Philo or Tramel Jones. Just give me your quick thoughts on these guys, Zach, because this is they each have their pros and they each have their cons, obviously. But what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that there was a thought going into the portal cycle that Florida might need to add 2 quarterbacks from the portal because of not just losing DJ Lagway, but graduating Harrison Bailey. And gosh, what was the guy? The guy's name's escaping my from Colorado State.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't believe I forgot his name. Clay Millen. Clay Millen. Shout out to Clay. But he was on scholarship at Florida in the quarterback room, along with Harrison Bailey. So Florida lost 3 scholarship players at that position and only brought in Will Griffin from the high school ranks. So there was a thought that Florida might go out and get 2 portal quarterbacks. I think the fact that they didn't, and I don't even know if they tried, Keith, I think that speaks to how they feel about Aaron Philo and Tramel Jones Jr. I know from talking to Tramel's camp, and I think you do as well, that they feel like this staff believes in him and believes in his ability and is going to give him an opportunity to start. So, and he had options to go into the portal and did not because of the conversations that he had with the staff. So I do believe that this is going to be a true quarterback battle. And obviously it goes without saying that this staff has confidence in Aaron Philo. Otherwise, Buster Faulkner would not have brought him over from Georgia Tech. So he's a guy that has, that if there's any advantage that he has, it is the experience in this system and the fact that he's played and produced in it as well. Coming off the bench, leading him to a win over number 4 Miami, playing a couple weeks later against NC State when Hayes King was still hurt and leading them to a win in that game. So Aaron Philo has had more moments of quarterbacking a team at the collegiate level and having success than Tramel Jones has had. But Tramel Jones did not get the opportunities that Aaron's had to this point. And obviously we know that he was, buried behind Barry is not the way I would categorize it, but he was behind DJ Lagway. And despite the injuries, despite obviously the issues that were going on, Billy Napier was not going to pull the trigger on playing Tramel. And it took a coaching change and Billy Gonzalez coming in to finally do that. Now, that was a tough spot to put Tramel in down at halftime on the road against Kentucky. So I'm looking forward to seeing him getting another chance to kind of show what he can do with a fresh slate, new system. But I do think, Keith, that this is a true quarterback battle. Yes, if I'm gonna give anybody the edge going into camp, it's gonna be Philo, but it's really irrelevant because there's so much practices and scrimmages to be had, and Tramel's gonna get every opportunity to beat him out. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Can't watch it.
Aaron Philo has got a lot of trust and belief in, from his offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner, who coached him at Georgia Tech. That's true. Tramel Jones has a lot of trust and respect from his receivers and his teammates from having been with them for this time. And also, let's not forget, back in high school, he was 7-on-7 teammates with guys like Vernell Brown III, and I want to say Dallas Wilson too. So he has developed a rapport with those guys as well. So look, it's a great battle because neither one of them has really ever been the guy. And so you say, if Aaron Philo is so good, why wasn't he the starter at Georgia Tech? Well, they had Haynes King, who was a veteran player that they went out and got in the transfer portal. And he did finish 10th in the Heisman voting last year. So while Haynes King was not some elite dynamic passer, Zach, he was an elite dynamic football player who finished 10th in the Heisman voting all ACC. But Philo did play, and he played more as a true freshman than last year. I think they realized they didn't need him to play a lot last year, and they didn't want to burn a second season. Remember, he played more games than are allowed to be redshirted in your first season, so he was not redshirted. The redshirt came, I think, last season. But again, Zach, like you said, he performed at a fairly high level. The stats don't always tell the tale. He's got 2 career touchdown passes, 3 career interceptions. But when you look at the circumstances, the win against NC State, the drives, the throws, coming in against Miami when Miami knew that Haynes King couldn't throw and that if Philo was coming in, he was going to throw, and yet he completed 5 of 10 passes and got them down the field and helped them win that game. And that was a tall task. That was a guy coming in as a young player and beating a Miami team that had wiped the floor with Florida earlier in the season. So, there's a lot to like there. But Tramel Jones, again, very smart, believes in himself, has the belief of his teammates. Both of these guys, the thing to like if you're a Florida fan is they both, when they were the guy, the last time either one of them was the man, Zach, was in high school. Tramel's junior season, he missed most of his senior season with a bad leg injury. I think he was hurt in 2 different places. His last meaningful game was a state championship game. They lost, but he helped elevate his team to the state championship. The last time Aaron Philo was the man was his senior in high school, and he won a state title. These are winners. Again, I bring this up all the time. The guys that historically have won at Florida, won big, also won big in high school. It's no coincidence. And that's what these 2 guys did. They won and they elevated the teams around them. So I think there's a lot of optimism at Florida that one of these 2 guys, well, Zach, I think that they think that both of them could be the guy, quite frankly. I think. So we'll see. We're going to get a better understanding of what the position looks like in the spring. But Tramel Jones, I mean, I'm telling you, you and I both talk to people in his orbit, and he certainly is confident and optimistic, and he doesn't see it as a competition, I was told, with Aaron Philo. He sees all this, and I'm sure Aaron Philo views this the same way, but Tramel views this as a competition with himself. And if he does what he's supposed to do, he feels like he'll be the guy. But, 2 highly confident guys, 2 guys that are good locker room guys, which is what you want your quarterback, right? They're popular guys. Other players like them from what we're told. So I think that's significant too, Zach. And but like you, I think you got to give Philo a little bit of a leg up going into this. But
sure,
and obviously now we don't suspect they're going to name anybody the starter in the spring. It may be, Zach, the week before the first game. It's going to be a while. There's going to be a lot to determine. There's going to be some ups and downs. And but again, so far heard good things about both these dudes.
Yeah, I have as well. I can't wait to see it play out. I agree with you too. I don't think that we're going to see anything decided per se coming out of spring, although it might be obvious to some of us who's got the edge. But this is going to carry over into fall training camp, and as it should. You don't want to crown a guy unless one dude just absolutely outplays the other this spring. So we're looking forward to it. The Gators get back on the grass March 3rd. Keith and I will be out there. We'll be providing you guys with coverage throughout camp, and then obviously the spring game, April 11th in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium.
All right. You want to do a quick basketball look at?
Yeah, absolutely. Big one in the O-Dome, man.
All right. So Florida's ranked number 7, looking like a 2, at worst a 3 seed right now. 22-6 overall. Forget about that. 13-2 in the SEC. Don't forget that. What does that mean, Zach? They got 3 games remaining. They got a 2-game lead. All they got to do is win one of these 3, and they win the SEC. Now, you'd rather win it alone. Who cares? You get a banner either way if you're the SEC champion, but I'm sure they'd like to win out and claim it themselves. But one of these 3 games, Arkansas tomorrow night, right, Saturday night, Mississippi State at home next week. The Arkansas game's at home. Mississippi State at home next week. And then next weekend, Kentucky on the road. Rupp Arena's been a house of horrors for Florida and everybody else historically. But this team is sitting pretty. Arkansas, though, ranked 20th, 21-7 overall, 2 games behind Florida. If they win this game, which, it's going to be a tough one. If Arkansas can somehow go into Gainesville and win, they still have a chance to win an SEC title or share an SEC title. John Calipari versus Todd Golden. Both of them have won national title as a coach. And it's just another great matchup, Zach. But this basketball team, what do they won? 8 in a row now? Is it 13 out of 14? The only loss during that stretch was that fluky home defeat to Auburn. The team's hitting on all cylinders. One guy has an off night. 4 guys are there to pick up the slack. That win against Texas, man. Here you go. They're tested at the half, Zach, and they end up winning with ease.
They're down with 7 minutes left.
Something unique and special about this team. They can flip the switch. You don't always have to rely on that, obviously, but they can beat you in so many different ways. Chinleyu was the top rebounder in the country a week ago. He's had 2 games in a row where he hasn't been as sharpest as a rebounder, and other people have stepped up. And it's really something how this team is gelled, just like a lot of people predicted. It was going to take time with the new backcourt, Zach, and it's happened, and it's happened in a beautiful way.
It is, yeah. I think they needed that game against Texas. If you think about their winning streak, a lot of these opponents they've rolled. They've built big leads and been able to maintain them. And look, they did it again against the Longhorns, but it didn't happen until late. But Alex Condon is on a roll right now. 3 straight 20-point games. He's hitting some 3-pointers. He's really found his rhythm. Boogie Flan as well. He's playing very, very good over the last couple games, and he seems to be, finding his shot from 3-point range. But the thing that Florida is going to always hang its hat on is rebounding and playing great defense. And I don't even want to necessarily say that they weren't playing great defense in the first half, because Texas made some pretty impressive shots and they had a good game plan. But Florida came out in the second half and put the clamps down. And it was still a back and forth game for much of that second half, even though they were defending better. But when it really came down, they had a 6-0 run to regain the lead, and they were up by 3 with under 8 minutes left, and Florida just completely cut their water off. They went 7 minutes and 27 seconds, the final 7 minutes and 27 seconds, without making a shot. No field goals by Texas in the last 7:27. So Florida really went on an incredible run. It was 14-1 to build a double-digit lead, and then it ended up being a 21-3 scoring stretch that they had. That is a championship level response to being down on the road late in the second half. And to be able to do it in the way that they did with, again, 3-point shooting, showing up, they're getting still points in production from their bench as well. So you couple that with, great defense and winning on the interior, which actually, believe it or not, they ended up not doing in this game. Florida lost the rebounding battle for only the second time this season. And they really lost it in the second half. That was kind of the only thing that didn't go well in the second half. But it didn't matter. Florida ended up having a sizable lead by the time it was all said and done. And it was a good test for Florida on the road, not only before they go to Rupp, but just before they get into what's going to be several environments away from home that are going to be tough and competitive, just like it was in Austin.
Yeah, last 2 games, last 2 chances to see this great team play at the O-Dome are Saturday against Arkansas, next week against Mississippi State. Okay, Zach, so all time, only 7 Florida teams have won SEC titles. I don't count the tournament. That's a whole separate thing. 7 SEC regular season championship teams in Florida history. 1989, the Norm Sloan team with Dwayne Shinchis, Dwayne Davis, Livingston Chapman, Clifford Lett, and Ronaldo Garcia. That team got bounced in the first round of the NCAA tournament, though. 2000, Billy Donovan. This is going to be a trend here. 2001, Billy Donovan. 2007, Billy Donovan. People forget the first championship team from the 04s, the first national championship team, did not win the SEC. They actually only went 10-6 in the SEC, Zach, before going on that tremendous roll. So 2007 SEC champions, 2011 under Billy Donovan, 2013 under Billy Donovan, and then to cap it off, 2014 under Billy Donovan, the great Final Four team, Billy Donovan's last Final Four team, went 18-0 in the SEC, 36-3 overall. At one point, won 30-something straight games, Zach. They were 5-3 versus top 25 teams, reached the NCAA Final Four before losing to UConn. I want to point out Patrick Young, the starters. Patrick Young, Will You Get, Casey Prather, Michael Frazier, and Scotty Wilbekin. So this team has a chance to do something special, Zach. Coming off of a national title last season, it's easy to kind of overlook things that are beneath that are below that. But when you've only won 7 all time, and most of them have come in recent memory, it's still special to win an SEC title. It never gets old because this was a program that was the doormat of the league for 50 years. All right, a couple good seasons here and there, but essentially the doormat. For a time, Zach didn't even have a full-time basketball coach. Okay. Football coaches coach basketball. Norm Sloan was the first full-time basketball coach at Florida in the 60s. So this program has come so far. Zach, it means something to me. It means something to historians. What would it mean to Todd Golden and this team to win the SEC title? You've talked about this before.
I think it would be a massive, massive accomplishment. They obviously weren't able to do it last year, even though they were the best team in the SEC and they were right there in it. They got the win at Auburn over the team that won the league. So it is a feather that Todd Golden has not put in his cap. And while the ultimate and end goal is to win the national championship and go back-to-back and repeat, and this team 100% can do it, it's very hard to do it. And, it takes a lot of magic and things to go right to be able to get to that point and hoist that trophy. So being able to have this regular season championship, it makes the 2025 and 2026 year a successful one for the Gators, regardless of what happens in March, in my opinion. Now, if they get bounced out in the first round, maybe we'll change
it. If they lose to Tuscaloosa, I can't even get the word out. Let's say if they lose to Wofford in the first round, that's a little easier. So, that changes things.
But I think that this team is Sweet 16, Elite 8 bound at the very least. And but again, we all know it's very hard to win it all twice. There's only been 2 teams that have done it in all of college basketball. And I hate to say to bring that up as to put that juju out there, but it is, to me, that's why it makes the SEC title all that more valuable and important, because it does make this year successful to me no matter what happens. And I know the ultimate goal is to go back-to-back, but it's so hard to do. And so is winning the SEC. And for this team to be able to accomplish that, given the way the year started, the non-conference slate, the opening loss to Missouri, it'd be incredible.
Yeah, and also, to be honest with you, you get the automatic bid if you win the tournament title. They don't need that. They're already in. And for seeding purposes, we've learned really the conference tournaments don't mean a whole hell of a lot, Zach, to be honest with you. So if Florida finishes out, let's say 15-3 or 16-2, they could get bounced in the first or second game in the SEC tournament. It probably won't even matter. I think at worst, this team's going to be a 3 seed. I think it would be. Now we'll have to see how these next 8 days play out. Interesting stat though, Zach, as we're going through those SEC champions, 2 of Florida's 3 national championship teams didn't win the SEC. Only one national championship team won the SEC. You'd rather win the national title if you could pick, obviously. No doubt. But it ain't a bad thing to win an SEC title. This team has really done it all, Zach. And they're 8 deep. They found their 8 pretty early in the season, really. And give me an unsung hero. Is it Urban? Who's the guy that you think if they wouldn't have got great production out of this year, might not be sitting in this position? 1 or 2 guys, 3, all 3?
Yeah, you got to go with Urban. I think Urban's been so critical for a team that struggled for so many games to hit from 3, that had so many games where Xavier Lee and or Boogie Flan were just not playing at the level that they were capable of and that Florida needed them to. And Urban was coming off the bench and providing that lift and providing that three-point shooting, providing that guard production. He's improved at it as a defender. And as Todd has said, it's hard to argue that there's a better, guard coming off the bench in the SEC than Urban Klabsar. So you got to go with him. I think obviously, Isaiah Brown's contribution off the bench has been very big as well. And then I was gonna say one other, and I know that now it's not a surprise, but Ruben Chinyelu, his year and what he's done when we did our preview show, Keith. I mean, I don't know how many of us thought that he was going to have the season that he's had. You knew what Tommy Houck was going to do. You knew what Alex Condon was capable of. There were high expectations for Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee. They're finally living up to them. But Ruben Chinyelu just kind of came out of nowhere, but we didn't see this coming. And so his year being arguably one of the best defenders in the country and the best in the SEC, his rebounding output, his scoring output, just everything that he's done to raise his game this year has definitely allowed this team to have its success, I think, along with Urban and Isaiah coming off the bench.
Big day for Boogie Flan Saturday, playing his old team, his old coach.
That's right.
Big game at the O-Dome just in general. Again, Florida would clinch at least a share of the SEC regular season title with a win over the Razorbacks, the resurgent Razorbacks. This is a good team. This is going to be a test, Zach. That's a quality team. And I think I saw a tweet a week ago. Somebody said, when Arkansas is playing at its best, there's nobody in the SEC better. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think if Florida's playing its best, there's nobody better. But
agreed.
We all live in our bubbles. But look, it's a good quality opponent. That's what you want. Florida is 9-5 against quad one teams this year, sitting in the top 10 of the net, of Ken Palm, of Torvik, whatever it is. So this is a team that's really moved up. By the way, ranked number 7th. And Zach, people forget after the loss to Missouri, Florida was unranked. All right, now you're looking at a team fighting for a 2 seed. Who knows what the next week or two are gonna play out? If Florida wins out, maybe a 1 seed. If there's some losses in there by some other people, we'll have to see. But Zach, it's been a hell of a run. That will do it for this edition of the Gators Online Show. If you like what we're doing, can we get that like and subscribe? You guys, he's always 2 steps ahead of me. Like and subscribe down below. Leave comments. Sorry we didn't get to any of your questions this week. We are going to be able to do shows, by the way, with a lot more Q&A, a lot more give and take when it's a little bit slower. But we had a lot to talk about today. Yeah, you want to throw up a couple comments?
Yeah, a little shout out. We got your boy. I don't know if you can recognize the name. Travis says, "What's up?" And appreciate all y'all joining in, man. This is a fun time to be following Florida sports. Spring football, basketball, baseball, softball. Shout out. I do want to give a shout out to Liv McGill from the women's basketball team. Yeah. Set the single season scoring record on Thursday night. So congrats to her.
Zach had me cover the baseball opener. It was probably the worst game they've played in 15 years. And they haven't lost since. So maybe I'm the jinx. I don't need to be out at the Conjuring too much more. Golf teams, both of them are rolling. Look like national championship contenders. So this could, and then obviously track and field, Florida's always what it is. So it could be a big spring at the University of Florida. So for Zach Albaverdi, I am Keith Niebuhr. This was the Gators Online Show. We hope everybody has a safe and fun weekend. Enjoy the basketball game, and we'll do it again next week. And obviously, coverage of spring football practice at GatorsOnline.com begins. Well, we've already started. We've run all of our previews, but actual coverage from, spring practice begins next week, I guess is the best way to say it. And we will have you covered. So make sure you go to GatorsOnline.com for all the latest intel, news, nuggets, notes, and great recruiting coverage. Take care, everybody.